Movement marketing is really rallying people around a shared cause that they already care about. So it's getting folks to kind of join into a shared cause or community, often about trying to lead towards some kind of change. Like, I don't know if you've ever received like a Facebook paid post where it seems like they were almost psychic. They somehow knew exactly what you were thinking about. And you're like, wow, okay, that's interesting. That really is relevant to me. That happens rarely. More often with digital ads, they are persistent. Listen to your heart over your head. Don't ignore your head, but your heart is not in it. Starting a business is too hard to be doing something that you're not 100% bought into emotionally in your heart. You gotta love it.
And that is coming up next on Bootstrapping Your Dreams show, so stay tuned. So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough, use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams? Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. We have created a tremendous community of bootstrappers, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ambitious, resourceful, and want to get things done. We brainstorm, support, and help each other out. So come join us. Navigate to bootstrapping.group, join today, and get the Startup Founders Technology Accelerator video series absolutely free. If you enjoy this video, then do let us know by hitting that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, then go ahead and hit that thumbs down button and give us your honest feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tatternoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging videos, interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing and do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. I'm your host Manuj Aggarwal, and today we'll be talking with Chip Walker. So Chip is a brand, business, and cultural strategist who has spent his career at some of New York Madison Avenue's legendary agencies. He has led the strategy function at a creative agency, a marketing services agency, and a digital social agency, giving him a truly multidisciplinary perspective. He's also a lead strategist across WPP companies, ad, media, digital, multicultural, and so on, for some of its largest clients, including AT&T and Bank of America. Welcome, Chip.
Hey there, glad to be here.
All right. So seems like you have spent a lot of time in marketing and advertising. So can you walk us down the memory lane and tell us a little bit about how you got started, how you got attracted to this field of work?
Yeah. I'm happy to. Well, you know what? I was a liberal arts major in college. I studied philosophy, believe it or not, and there weren't a lot of philosophy jobs around. But I didn't really feel like it was. I wasn't really a finance person. I thought I was kind of more of a creative person, and I just wasn't sure what to do. And just by happenstance, I walked into an advertising agency between my junior and senior years, and was interviewing for an internship. And I didn't even know what they did, but I walked in, and within an hour, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I could just tell it was the kind of people I wanted to be around. It was the kind of energy. They were solving interesting problems. It was a business, but it was a very creative, interesting business. And I never looked back. I got out of college, got a job in advertising, and have been in marketing, communications, advertising for the last 30 years.
Oh, that's awesome. So what attracted you? You said, that you wanted to be around people who were solving these problems. And, marketing is sort of, from what I from what I know about marketing, is more about understanding humans and trying to sort of get into their head. So, did that attract you to marketing and advertising, or there was something else?
Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it. I told you I was a philosophy major, so
Yeah.
I guess I fancied myself a little bit of an intellectual. I probably was not and am not, but I thought I was. And going into the ad agency, and it was where I went to school at Vanderbilt in Nashville, so it was a local agency. Um, and they were studying people. They were having focus groups. They were having discussions about psychology and how you kind of get inside people's psyche and get them on the same page with your client. And I'd really not thought about business that way in those days. I thought it was much more, I don't know, cut and dried. And it was, what these folks were doing was fascinating to me. And that's kind of what drew me into marketing, because as you said, it is very much about human beings and culture and figuring out what makes them tick.
Yeah. I've read some of your work, and the kind of work that you do, and you talk a lot about movement advertising. So can you tell us a little bit about what is movement advertising?
Sure. We call it movement marketing, but I don't. I think you're aware. Currently, I run the strategy function at a sort of small, mid-sized creative agency in New York City called Strawberry Frog. My business partner is a gentleman named Scott Goodson, and Scott and I have been working for really over 10 years building this philosophy that we call movement marketing. And it's sort of an alternative to traditional advertising. And traditional ads are really about kind of messaging people, trying to convince them of things and trying to persuade them. And it's not a very sustainable approach these days because it's so expensive. We can't really afford to buy mind share, and people can block your ads and tune your ads out, and it's just not as effective as it once was. Movement marketing is really rallying people around a shared cause that they already care about. So it's getting folks to kind of join into a shared cause or community, often about trying to lead towards some kind of change. The quintessential brand movement, I think, is Dove and the campaign for real beauty. And so Dove is really not so much talking about, products that help keep your skin cleaner as much as they're talking about join us in this quest to bring about real beauty in the world, or get people focused on real beauty and not just superficial beauty. So that's an idea a lot of people can get behind. So it's less about convincing people and more about rallying them around a cause that they already want to participate in. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of what movement marketing is about. And we've been sort of developing an approach to help companies and brands do that for the past 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, the theme of the show is bootstrapping, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are either just getting started or they are at the first stage of their journey. And so, given this circumstance for startup founders, they don't have a large marketing budget or budgets to spend on hiring mature agencies. So what is the advice you can give them to build this movement marketing around their product or service? What can they do in a scrappy way, if you will?
Well, so I'd say movement marketing is a much more potentially scrappy approach than particularly traditional advertising, which, as I said, is expensive. It's time consuming to create. Not many startups can afford to do a lot of traditional advertising, but there are many startups that are founded on a purpose. That's something that people just naturally want to get behind. I mean, think about some of these new digitally native brands like Warby Parker, like Allbirds. They're businesses, but they're businesses that are started with things like environmental sourcing in mind. Businesses that are starting around some sort of a purpose that is above making money. I mean, they're for-profit businesses, but they want to do things that also benefit the world. These things are the types of things that lead themselves to a movement naturally. Movement marketing can key off those immediately. And as I said, it can help you find customers who are already behind this kind of a cause, who can become your customers immediately, and you don't have to advertise to them or convince them.
I see. I see. And so, can you tell me a little bit about traditional advertising as well? You said that it's not working as good. So, when did that decline start? And are there any channels left that are still working in terms of traditional advertising, or no?
Well, sure. There certainly, and listen, I'm not here to back traditional advertising. I mean, as part of movement marketing, we sometimes do traditional advertising because you do sometimes need to buy mind share. And certainly, there is still no substitute if you need mass awareness. There's no substitute for broadcast video, including TV ads. If you've got to get by fast mind share, that's the way to do it. But as I said, it's expensive, and it does not work with the same efficiency as it did when there were 3 networks. When I started in this business, I'll show my age here, there were, I guess, 4 networks, and you could reach virtually everybody in the country, with a $15 million budget. These days, with a $15 million budget, I mean, you're not going to reach a ton of people through traditional advertising. So the channels still work. They're just more fragmented, and they cost just a lot more money. So that, really effective advertising is really only relegated to companies that can spend tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And many companies just can't do that.
I see. And so are you talking about TV ads, newspaper ads, print ads, or are you also including digital ads like Facebook ads and Google ads?
Yeah, I guess I was talking about what's effective a little bit more. I was referring to mass and some targeted media. I think digital advertising is a different beast, and it both works and it both fails to work. I mean, it works when, like, I don't know if you've ever received like a Facebook paid post where it seems like they were almost psychic. They somehow knew exactly what you were thinking about. And you're like, wow, okay, that's interesting. That really is relevant to me. That happens rarely. More often with digital ads, they are persistent, annoying, and creepy. They follow you around places, and they get the data gets you wrong. Like, for example, one of my social media sites now thinks that it's serving me ads for Cialis and Christian Mingle, and we don't know each other that well, but let me just say that neither of those two are very relevant to me. So when they get it right in digital, it's genius, but unfortunately, it almost never happens.
I see. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Now, you've done a lot of work on sustainability as well, and I'm passionate about climate change. So, what is happening in that world? I mean, are we doing enough? Are we doing the right thing, or what are your views about that?
And when you say "are we doing enough," do you mean as a society, as the business world? What are you thinking?
Let's talk about all the participants that you're passionate about. Maybe the society, entrepreneurs, the government, whatever you think is relevant here.
Well, it seems clear that we're not doing enough just because Antarctica is melting, and whatever we think we're doing, it doesn't seem to be going far enough. The thing that I'm concerned about right now, particularly as we go to work with companies, is I don't know if you've heard this term purpose washing, but basically I think sometimes there's a tendency for a CEO to take up an issue and to go around and talk about it, or for a company to take up an issue, like Gillette is taking up toxic masculinity, and they made a TV commercial about it. But as far as I can tell, that's it. They want to get credit for being concerned about it, but what are they actually really genuinely doing? So, I guess my thought on climate change and environmental issues in general is that they are very easy for companies to nod to and say, oh, we want to be a carbon neutral company by the year 2050. What are they really doing to make that happen? Is that actually aggressive enough? And so I guess the challenge is, can we see more companies and brands putting their money where their mouth is and being willing to take bold and even controversial actions to try to actually make something happen?
I see. Now, do you think that a huge factor here is that the economic growth or the economic potential has not caught up yet, and which is why businesses and enterprises are not really diving deep into this issue? Because as soon as there is economic incentive, I'm sure everybody will jump in as they are. I mean, the industry is growing rapidly with names like Tesla and SolarCity and others. So what are your views about that?
And so you're saying, is it that the idea that they don't think right now that supporting sustainability of their business practice, that it's not economically viable?
That's right. I mean, what I'm saying is, let's say, they want to, let's say an entrepreneur wants to do something about the climate, and they either want to launch a product, they want to improve their current infrastructure, what have you. But the economic incentive or the cost that it takes to do something is not compensated somehow by either a direct revenue or indirect benefits they are getting. Is that your point of view as well, or you see there is something more to this? Why are people not doing enough yet?
Well, I guess it's all on a case-by-case basis. But all I can do is let's think about, like you mentioned Tesla, the luxury car market. For years, the conventional wisdom in luxury cars was that the people who care about eco-friendly won't buy a luxury car. They're more Birkenstock wearing, granola eating people who might buy a Prius if you're lucky. But in general, they're going to be buying something, a used car. It just doesn't work. So that's the conventional wisdom, and that the economics just weren't there. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Tesla ignored all that. They came out with a performance car, of all things, that's eco-friendly. And guess what? They can't make enough of them. And they certainly are being, it is at a premium price versus even luxury cars. So I guess what that says to me is that sometimes I wonder, in these arguments about there not being economic viability, if we aren't in fact underestimating the consumer market and maybe using some kind of old-fashioned thinking. So I don't know. I guess if I were advising an entrepreneur who is thinking in these terms, I would consider a case like Tesla, or some of the other new startups that are really charging premium prices for eco-friendly sourcing, to sort of say, I think you can push the boundaries, and I don't know. I think it's a new day. I don't think in traditional terms.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I also think that there are a lot of economic opportunities, but people are not opening enough. And I think maybe they are waiting for somebody else to take the risk and prove that there's a market, then they jump in. Whatever the case is, I think they need to do more and sort of give it a real good push. So I think we are on the same page there. All right. So now let's talk about, along the same lines of movement marketing. And, we talked about climate change, which is a a topic of passion for a lot of people. Now, can you share with us any compelling data points about the purpose and movement driven marketing that you have done with any of your clients?
Yeah, so when you say data points, you mean data points of campaigns and how successful
Yeah,
they
any, yeah, exactly. Any case study, any kind of effect that adding this type of marketing had on their bottom line, or the kind of response they got from their customer base.
Sure, sure. Well, I can talk to you about one. It's for, believe it or not, it's for, of all things, a bank. And as we all know, banks are not very popular in general among anybody. They're much reviled and even hated by some people. But this is a bank. It's called SunTrust Bank. It's a big regional bank in Atlanta, and it serves a lot of the southern and eastern coast states. But at any rate, SunTrust came to us with sort of a flat to declining business. And they also had internal, they had employees who were not very engaged. And they really wanted to try something different to get people more, obviously signing up for checking accounts and whatnot, but also to get their employees motivated and to give them some sort of a reason to want to go to work every day. So we created a movement for them. It's called On Up, the On Up movement, but it stands for onwards and upwards. But basically, it's a movement to basically fight financial stress in our country, which, a lot of people have financial stress because the recovery hasn't really been felt by a lot of people. And it's a movement to promote financial confidence, get people confidently moving forward with their financial life and out of financial stress and distress. And the great thing about that movement is that, first of all, it resonated with so many customers, because I think a lot of people were declaring that, oh, the recession's over. Well, guess what? For half the population, it is not over. And even the parts for whom the recession is over, they're still worried about money. So the notion of bringing people education, tools, resources to help them get out of stress and in financial confidence was incredibly resonant and something people wanted to get behind. Probably even more importantly is it gave the SunTrust employees a real sense of purpose about, why am I getting up and going to work every day? And it's because my customers are hurting. And there's something I can do to get them out of stress and make them be more confident. So this is the point. And to your question about a data point, SunTrust was actually incenting people to try to participate in employee engagement programs before the On Up movement, and couldn't get people to participate. The On Up internal movement got almost 100% participation by employees. Their employee engagement numbers are up by double digits. Retention of employees is up by double digits. It even impacted, on the external standpoint, a lot of their very hard to move metrics around things like, just opening savings accounts, which I don't know if you've ever worked in banking, those numbers are almost impossible to move. And we didn't see double digit, but we certainly saw single digit increases after the SunTrust, the On Up movement versus before. So it's, it's not the sexiest category, but it's one where a movement certainly worked well.
Awesome. That's great. And so part of your process is also to use behavior science to help inform the creative direction and methodology, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about that, about how that process works and why it's fundamental to the success of a marketing campaign?
Right. It's pretty straightforward. I think whenever you use that word behavior and behavioral science, that everyone thinks that you're going to bring in Malcolm Gladwell or, I don't know, some kind of other expert and talk about deep psychological testing and all this kind of stuff. And listen, we've looked at that stuff, but I think what we've concluded is that in thinking about movement and behavior, it's actually pretty simple. That first and foremost, a movement, whereas advertising is about telling people something and getting them to perceive something, a movement is about trying to get people to do something. Sign up, uh, take a pledge, um, wear a T-shirt, sing a song. That movements are associated with actions, and that in order to get people to do those actions, the most important thing that you can do is to find out what the barriers are to having a person do that action. And they usually aren't that hard to find out. You just really have to go do research with your target audience, find out, what might be standing in the way of getting them to do the action we want them to do. And at that point, it becomes actually pretty clear to know, what are strategies to help combat those. So, again, for us, the behavioral component, while not easy to solve, we don't view it as mysterious as I think some people think behavioral science is.
Got it, got it. And one point you brought up was research and talk to people. So, again, going back to my bootstrapping comment, if somebody wants to do this in a scrappy way, like what methodologies will you recommend in terms of doing the market research and talking to your customers and getting that data on the cheap, basically?
Oh yeah, so this is a subject very near and dear to my heart because I hate focus groups. I think they're misleading and expensive and slow, and often surveys have a lot of problems with them. So traditional marketing research, while we do plenty of it, it can go wrong and it can certainly cost you a lot of money. I'm a big fan. In fact, I had a boss once who said, if you want to know how the lion hunts, go to the jungle, not the zoo. And by that, she meant like a focus group is like going to see an animal in a zoo. Mm-hmm. You really need to go to the jungle. And by that, she meant get off your rear end, get out and go and look and see and interact with your customers and do so in a natural habitat. And often that doesn't really cost you a lot of money. You can find target audience members that you can have a coffee with, that you can go and observe. Let's say it's an alcoholic spirits brand. Go to a bar, talk to people. And it's not only is, I think a lot of people think that, well, that's not really research. And I would argue that it is some of the best research because, as I said, it's not an artificial setting. It's a natural habitat. So that's a biggie that I would do.
I see. All right. And what do you think has shifted in the last 10 years in terms of marketing and advertising? As you said it, like, there are some channels which used to be more effective, but they're not effective anymore. Are you noticing any more trends? Are you noticing that people are getting sort of too prone to advertising because there's so much of it?
No, I do. Well, obviously, as you said, there have been huge changes in technologies and the channels that we use. So we've covered that, and that's obvious. Everybody knows about it. I feel like there have been some subtler changes kind of in people that have to do with generation. And it kind of leads us a little bit back to our movement marketing approach, which, I saw a statistic recently from Gallup, and I won't get the number exactly right, but it was close to 50% agreed in this Gallup survey with the statement that they had felt the urge to protest something, to join into a protest over an issue in the last year. It was true of everybody, but it skewed. It was particularly true among younger people. Okay. And the reason I bring that up is that I feel one of the byproducts of us being all separated into tribes due to social media and the internet is that we just feel more strongly about issues than we used to. Whatever we believe and think about, we feel it more strongly than ever. And it's one of the reasons that people are expecting companies and brands to start taking a stand on some of these issues, which is why I think movement marketing works. And listen, when I started in this business, a brand or a company would have run as far as they could from any kind of a controversial issue. And it would have been thought that that is not appropriate for companies to be thinking about. But because, as I said, of changes in the way that people feel and the way consumers feel, particularly younger ones, I think that shifted the way that we're thinking about marketing. And I think it makes movement marketing even more important.
Awesome. And taking it one step further, what do you think will be the future, let's say in 20, 25 years? Do you think movement marketing will still be around, and will it be thriving, or will it be replaced by something else? I'm sure nobody can predict the future, but what are your views as an expert in this area?
Yeah. Um, I mean, all the signs that I can see point towards this. I don't know what the right word is. Not polarization. It's the more, I guess, tribalism is the word, where we're all in a little bit of echo chambers, wanting to associate with folks who believe like we do. All the signs are is that that's not going away anytime soon. And for those reasons, I think this notion that people are going to be wanting to live their beliefs and live and shop their beliefs and their priorities, I think it's just going to get stronger over time. So for those reasons, I think it's going to be a continuation of what we're seeing with things like movement marketing.
Got it. And one of the last questions is, can you share with us any mistakes that you've made in your career in entrepreneurship, in marketing, that was a huge lesson to you, and people may learn from it?
Mistake that I've made that you could learn from. Yeah, I'd say one I can talk about a little bit is I started a business once, and the business idea made complete rational sense. I started a research company. I've been in marketing and advertising, but a lot of my job has to do with the consumer. So I do a lot of research. I know a lot about research. And I thought, well, that's a good business to be in. Everybody's always going to need that. Who knows what's going to happen with advertising? So that's what I did. I did fine, but I ended up not very happy. And wanting to exit the business and closing it down. So I think the mistake that I made was thinking too rationally about what kind of business I ought to be doing, as opposed to thinking about what do I love and what do I think my purpose for being here on Earth is about. And probably it's not, for me, the answer is not doing research. So the lesson to me is listen to your heart over your head. Don't ignore your head, but your heart is not in it. Starting a business is too hard to be doing something that you're not 100% bought into, in terms of your emotionally and your heart. You gotta love it. And I just think you'll be so much more committed to it if you do that.
Yeah, no, that's a very good piece of advice, and thanks for sharing that. Well, I mean, that brings us to the end of the interview, so let's end it at this high note. Before I let you go, can you tell us how people can reach out to you?
Sure. It's really easy. So my name's Chip Walker. You can just reach me at Chip, CHIP, at Strawberry Frog. That's strawberry like the fruit and frog like the animal. Chip at strawberryfrog.com. And reach out to me if you got any questions. I'm happy to answer them if I can.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thanks once again for being with us and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Fantastic. And thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
And that's all for now. Until next time. Now, if you're an entrepreneur or a career professional, then I invite you to join our growing community. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. As a welcome bonus, you will get the Startup Founders Technology Accelerator video series and Mastering Your Inner Game video series absolutely free. This series of short videos address some core issues which are instrumental in helping you move forward in your business or career. The videos are yours to view and share for free. No obligations or strings attached, except for one. You have to take action and implement it. So join us today. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. If you want more engaging videos and insightful interviews with industry's thought leaders, then check out the other videos we have picked for you. The link is right there. And if you want to be notified about our new content, please do consider subscribing to our channel.